Hello, everyone. Over the last year, we've all seen how LLMs have been changing the way people discover information. Traditional SEO has always been about ranking factors, traffic, but now we are entering a world where answers are generated instantly. In fact, Google is trying to predict the answers even before you type, and that's been in the existence for a while now. And visibility may not always be equal to clicks. This shift has raises big questions. How do we create content that's valuable not only to humans and also to machines? To help us navigate these questions, we have someone who has spent more than a decade simplifying SEO and making it transparent for marketers worldwide, Nathan Gotch. Nathan, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Nathan Gotch is the founder of Gotch SEO Academy. It's the number one SEO training program for agencies, and CEO of Rankability, which is an AI driven SEO operating system. It's quite interesting, Nathan. Why it's SEO operating system? I'm quite curious to know about it.
So I'm assuming you're talking about the headline on the homepage.
That's
Yeah,
great.
so for rankability in particular, and I don't want to talk too much about rankability, promoting our product here, but we just have a vision of where we want to go with this product, and our vision is pretty simple. We want to kind of build this entire kind of software operating system for agencies. Specifically designed for this new environment that we're all trying to compete in now, which is not just playing this traditional Google game anymore, but we're also having to think about, four or five different products just within Google that we have to optimize for. And we can get into that. And then also, the rising star of ChatGPT and all these kind of more micro AI chat platforms that are coming through. So, we just see a future where there's we're a lot of fragmentation, and you're going to need software to be able to kind of optimize across all these platforms. So, our goal is to ultimately give that leverage to agencies so they can get better results for their clients. And so in my mind, I see this kind of like operating system element where kind of hitting on all the different components of a proper, AI search optimization strategy going forward. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. And I think you're also been very popular in LinkedIn. I mean, there's a lot of brands like SEMrush, Ahrefs, Search Engine Journal. You got featured over there. And the great thing is you have trained thousands of marketers to build scalable SEO systems. That's very important. So, Nathan, you've always emphasized that SEO needs to be transparent, right? And how does that philosophy apply now, with the LLMs getting in and the black box content decisions being made on how they show up content?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of most difficult part right now is trying to figure out what's the proper way to track all of this and being able to report to a business. So I always try to step into the shoes of if I was just a plumber, running my company, I need to dumb this down so much that he can just get a nice snapshot of performance and know that these actions we're taking are actually producing positive return on investment for him. And a lot of the time, especially when we live in our little SEO bubble, we start to get really technical and like get into the super intense stuff. But the reality is most local business owners, most local businesses, they have kind of one simple objective, which is I'm putting $1 in, am I getting $3 back? And a lot,
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's a lot of agencies out there that don't think like that. They just think about, well, okay, how long can we keep this client? Right? That's their mindset. Is how long do I keep this client on a retainer? Instead of thinking about, is this investment that they're putting into us, is it actually generating significant revenue on the back end? And that's really important. And right now, the biggest challenge, if you want to get into it as far as tracking, with AI generated responses, if you search, we'll just stick with the plumber theme here. Best plumber in St. Louis, Missouri, or you search, who's the best, much more conversational query. So, who's the best plumber in St. Louis, Missouri? If I have children and they've passed background checks, right? So a bunch of context in there, and so what will likely happen is ChatGPT is going to generate, a bunch of different plumbers based on the signals. We can talk about that, but a bunch of signals to produce this list of plumbers in this location. Um, and the thing is, there's not always links. so, so even if you are the number one plumber in that response, how do we quantify what just happened there? How do we quantify that person said, "Oh, okay, Joe Schmo's the best plumber"? What happens after that, right? And
Right.
that's the challenge right now is like, how do we kind of bridge that gap where like we've got this generated response that's clearly promoting a brand? How do we get that? How do we track that? And there's not a whole lot of direct ways to do it quite yet, but there's some indirect mechanisms you can use. So I don't know how deep you want to go on the analytics. I'm super like deep into this right now, but we can go wherever you want. But I just want to give you a high level overview on that front. But as far as transparency, um, I this has been for the last probably even before AI. One thing that I added in my agency when I was doing a lot more, client work, so we have two different mechanisms that we want to track in a campaign, right? So we've got our lagging goals, which are the things that we can't control really. It's just this. It's all from the action. We have the lagging goals. It's going to be the traffic. It's going to be the conversion. It's going to be the revenue. Okay, so that's the lagging. But the leading goals are the actual inputs of the campaign. So an example would be we optimized 10 local landing pages, right? That's an input. And for a long time, this is when I was starting my agency, I was always like, okay, why am I losing clients when I'm getting really good results? And that was a really weird thing for me. I'm like, wait, I thought like if I just got good results, like I'd keep my clients, right? I thought that was the idea.
Yeah.
And then come to find out that's actually not the whole equation. And a lot of people, like a lot of beginners think that. They think, oh, well, if I just get results, then my clients are going to stick with me forever. It's not true.
Right.
And in fact, what matters more is, like you mentioned, transparency and communication. That matters way more. And in fact, if you have a campaign that's, let's say, not going according to plan, happens to everyone, right? There's just some campaigns that no matter what you do, it just not going the way that it should. Um, but if you continue to have good communication and good transparency, you actually can retain that client much longer. And then you can, eventually figure out the issue that's going on. So you give yourself more of a buffer to actually produce that outcome. So the reason I'm saying that is because one of the things I introduced, and a lot of people like in my training use this now, is what I call an SEO action dashboard. And it's just a very simple Google sheet. It's got some filters and stuff, but in
Right.
essence, it documents every action that you do throughout the month for that client, like to the
Right.
most granular detail. And the reason it might seem kind of like OCD or a little obsessive, but I'm telling you, when I introduced this to my clients, it was like the biggest game changer because instead of just saying, hey, here's a report from all your results, and I don't just do that anymore. I say, okay, well, here are the three things we did. Here are the three, outcomes that we got. So now I'm able to show like, okay, here's all the stuff that we're doing to make this a reality. Because out of sight, out of mind, right? Just how it is. And if you're not showing
Right.
them the caseload, if you're not showing them all that work that's going into it, they just don't know. So you have to
Right.
sell the work and you have to sell the outcome. You have to do both. And when I discovered that, I just saw a huge improvement in retention. Um, and so
Right.
just so that's why, brought up transparency. So that's just the one thing really was a huge game changer, to be honest. So yeah.
No, absolutely, Nathan. With you on that, because when it comes to transparency, it's all about just documenting things that works, and most importantly, keeping a track of which worked, which didn't. Because I feel that out of all the subsets of the digital marketing, SEO is something which converting it into hours and saying that this takes this much hours, it's quite difficult because you're always in a black box trying to do troubleshooting, always trying to
Right.
figure it out. So it's quite important that we document the same. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and just to kind of add to that, like there's a lot of great agencies out there. But of course, in every industry, there are some bad actors in every industry. Okay.
Right.
And unfortunately, agencies that hide behind this kind of like aura of like secrecy about the things that they do, there's a reason for that. Okay. Like there's a
Mm.
reason why they don't want to show the client certain things. And it's because the client would say, what the heck is that? like and that's because so like small little details like instead of doing let's call it wider hat outreach and link building PR, they're building private blog networks or they're using web
Mm.
2.0s or they're doing
Right.
things that are when you look at it objectively you're like what is this like it's just strange and it's not something you're
Yeah.
super proud to show a client, right? So then what they'll say is to the business owner, and they'll say, well, our methods are proprietary, right? We have proprietary methods, and we can't share, our secret sauce. Okay. So if you ever hear that, that's a sign that they're probably engaging in gray or black hat SEO, and they just don't want to actually show you, because there's nothing
Yeah.
proprietary about SEO. I mean, obviously, we've all got our own unique systems and ways of doing things, which
Right.
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking more about like the end deliverable. If it's not high quality, some agencies don't want to show it, and that's the real truth behind it. So just one kind of
Yeah.
clarification on that. So yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, Nathan. That's the reason I started this first question with that transparency, because it's not just in the last 2 years. I've been following you for a long time now, and always you've been emphasizing this. Even in your trainings, you used to mention about it, keeping things transparent and also showcasing things. And also, I remember, I think close to 7, 8 years back itself, you posted about the same, saying that,
Right.
if an agency cannot show you what work they're doing, that means something, there's no secret sauce, right? Because
No, no.
everybody, it's yeah, good. And now that it's evolving, I think, Nathan, but let me just ask from your perspective, what do you think are some of the ranking factors? Are they still applying on LLM like how it used to apply for Google, or do you think it's a completely newer playbook that we're dealing with here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the product that we're optimizing for. So there is some variance and some variables that um, are unique to certain platforms. And but I think in general, you can do very, very well across the board, across almost all Google and all the LLM based platforms with a strong SEO foundation. And that is absolutely been proven by me and other people. And, that's just, it definitely does work. Now, one click, I've seen there's a lot of polarization on this topic right now. Okay. And there's some people on one end that say, um, you know, let's say geo or AEO or AI search optimization is basically 100% just SEO. Right. There's some people that believe that it's geo is SEO. That's it. There's nothing.
Mm.
And then there's people on the other side that say they're radically different. They're not even close to being the same.
Right.
I'm more in the middle. And because I see kind of both sides of that equation, and I do believe, just my personal opinion, if I were to like put it into a pie chart, I would say that most of the results that are produced across these platforms, I'd say it's probably 80% traditional SEO best practices, right? So everything from, technical, and I'm speaking directly about your website itself. We'll talk about um, third party sites as well, which is very important right now. But
Right.
you want to start with your website first. And that's always been the case. You should start with your website. You fix the
Yeah.
technical performance. You fix the user experience, and then you dive into the content strategy, right? And the content strategy is pick one topic and go a mile deep on that topic, and don't move on to the other topic until you've really, really hit every single nook and cranny of it. That still works, and that's what has worked for many, many years. Nothing has changed, and it continues to work now. And so like technical content. And then the third pillar, of course, is link acquisition to grow site authority
Yep.
to your site itself. So I would say, like, as far as AI search performance, 80% of it is just those three things for your one website. Now, what about the other 20%? Okay, that's where things get a little different.
Yeah.
This is where you can start to see some kind of uniqueness in some regard. So I'll give you a small example. Okay, I've ranked number one for St. Louis SEO for a decade. Like, I mean,
Mm.
it's been a very, very long time. So first I
Right.
did it with gotchseo.com, and I ranked with that website. Then in the academy, just to kind of prove a concept I was teaching in the program, I was like, watch, I'm going to build a one pager. So one page website. And I was proving the concept of an exact match domain, right? So for some reason it was available, but it was St. Louis SEO consultant.com. Okay. So that
Okay.
exact match domain was available. I snagged it. It was like,
Hmm.
normal price. It was like $12. I was like, okay, cool. So I optimized this website exactly how I just described: technical content, content optimization, optimizing for, with NLP and all that stuff. Okay. optimize that thing, and then I spent the next 5 to 6 months just link building to that one homepage, that one pager.
Hmm.
And I documented the whole process inside of the academy, and I just showed like, okay, watch, okay, here it is today, and here it is in a month from now, and then finally it got to number one. And so the reason I'm saying that is because this website ranks incredibly well in traditional search, like it
Right.
kills it. And
Mm.
if with the theory that, oh well, if you just do well in traditional search, you'll do well in ChatGPT and all these other
Right.
platforms.
Hmm.
This is a perfect example of that not being true, because this
Okay.
website it's been there for years, number one. But if you go and search best St. Louis SEO company in Google's AI mode, website doesn't show up. Does
Okay.
not show
Hmm.
up at all.
Right.
Do the same thing in ChatGPT. Doesn't exist. Doesn't
Okay.
exist. So
Mm.
this is an example of where just doing well in traditional does not always correlate to doing well on these other platforms. Now,
Right.
we can talk about each individual platform. Actually, well, since we're on the topic of Google AI mode, um, the the thing, it's actually quite easy with AI mode on the local level. So that's the good news, because
Yep.
based on what I've seen over the last since it launched, if you're a local business, having a good presence in the local pack seems to be about 90% of the equation in Google's AI
Right.
mode. So if you're
Okay.
searching best plumber in St. Louis and you're using AI mode, it basically is an exact replica of the local pack. So you'll
Right.
see the businesses that pop up, and they're literally just the ones that are doing best in the local pack. There's not really a whole lot you need to do other than just do really well in the local pack, and you'll do well likely in AI mode. So, which makes
Right.
sense because Google's just going to pull data from its other products, right? So,
Right.
so in that case, it's really simple. But in the case of ChatGPT, it's not so simple. And I'll give you another kind of weird thing that you would think would translate well to AI search, but doesn't. Okay, so an example is I ran this one recently, which was like I was looking up best personal injury lawyers in St. Louis. Okay, and uh, I found the ones that were doing well in the local pack. Then it translated to doing really well in Google's AI mode. Took the same
Uh-huh.
exact queries, ran them into ChatGPT, totally different set of businesses popping up. Now,
Oh.
the reason is because, at least in my theory, is that ChatGPT obviously is not using the local pack. It's just not. So you doing well
Right.
in the local pack in Google does not translate to performance in ChatGPT for an AI generated response. And
Hmm.
for ChatGPT, they're relying on other third party platforms a lot more. So Angie and Yelp, Better
Yep.
Business Bureau, platforms like that, right? And they're kind of getting the cumulative look across the board. And they say, okay, this brand's on across all these platforms. It has positive reviews across all these platforms. Therefore, this brand is the one that we're going to recommend, right? That's in a very, very simplification of the process. But and then even getting confirmation across other platforms like Reddit and YouTube and maybe even LinkedIn. And so that constant confirmation about a particular brand is what tends to, get you in those responses. So it's a different game in that way. And so
Yeah.
I just threw the kitchen sink at this, but I'm just saying it just shows that there's a lot of variance here, and it's not as simple as just saying if we just rank in traditional search, everything will be okay. It's just not the case.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
like I said, we can dive into more variables, but I just want to kind of highlight those anecdotal examples. So yeah,
No, that was a great example, Nathan. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. See, so I mean, in the map, let's say, for example, in the way the Google, the query deserves location specific way, when somebody is looking for a location or a local specific service, it has access to the user's phone location, because that's the first thing they do, check the location, and then they try to rank the map back, and then
right.
that is being showcased there. But I think ChatGPT, I'm not sure. I don't think location, even if they use the phone. I mean, I've been mostly using the desktop app. I mean, on the mobile app, I probably they're allowing the location or not, not sure. So probably it's still relying on our historical conversation, and then it tries to map it. Okay, if I'm mostly chatting from India, it tries to showcase mostly my city, my location related, and it tries to use Bing. I think it's using Bing Maps, right? I'm not sure. Maybe
Sometimes.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just on that point, as far as localization, so it is true when you search in Google, you don't even have to put a city modifier or anything. It will try to
Yeah.
triangulate where you are based on IP address. And it's really, really good
Right.
at that. ChatGPT actually is doing that right now. And so
Uh-huh.
we would just have been deep into this last couple of days because we're building out a tracking tool. And this is one kind of, wrench that's been thrown into our strategy because now there is this localization. So I'll give you a small example.
Mhm.
If you search just without any or any city modifier or location modifier, just search best plumber in an incognito window in ChatGPT. Okay, just search it like best plumber, best HVAC company, whatever.
Mhm.
It will try. You will see that it will try to pinpoint your location, and
Right.
it is not even close to as good as Google. I don't know what tech they're using for IP triangulation, but they're trying, right? They're trying. And
Mhm.
so we've been seeing this happening a lot. So like an example of this, like the query we ran yesterday. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. And when I ran that query, it said I was like in the middle of Missouri. Okay. So it was like, we're talking hundreds of miles off as far as it's trying to figure out where I am.
Mhm.
But it's a sign of what's to come, right? It's a sign of what's
Okay.
to come. And Perplexity is way better at this, actually. So if you search Perplexity and you use just use a the no local modifier, it is very accurate, like very, very accurate. It will pinpoint where you are based on IP address, and it will give you results based on where you are pretty accurately too. So,
Right.
yeah. So, once again, that changes the game, right? Because it's going to kind of enhance these responses a lot more if they can have that localization component. And just to kind of we can get into the retrieval part of this process that the AI uses, but when it doesn't know if it's any type of query that requires current information, 9 times out of 10, it's going to go and retrieve that from traditional search. So that's the piece where traditional search is so critical because that's typically where retrieval happens in most cases. So
Yeah.
Bing, Google, Claude tends to use Brave for whatever reason. Not sure why, but it does. And then, so the main point is like being visible in traditional search, not just your website, but if you can try to occupy as many results on the first page, you're putting a lot of bait out there for the AI to retrieve, and ultimately you can kind of form that response a little bit more. So yeah,
It's quite fascinating if you look at it, from a traditional SEO sense, like you mentioned. You had a domain, exact match domain for St. Louis SEO consultant. In fact, right before this, I was chatting with Nick, who's the owner of SEOjobs.com, ppcjobs.com.
right.
So we were quite discussing about it, and I think we are able to connect the dots now on how the thing is approaching, because traditionally SEO, it's the weightage is heavily on the domain, whether Google accepts it or not. EMD, we have seen it working well, especially for long tailors. But that game is different in LLMs, because in
Yes.
LLM you have more, it rewards more depth, context, and I think that's where the game is shifting.
Well, and the biggest danger, like I'm a big fan of exact match domains. Like for traditional SEO,
Mhm.
they're incredibly effective. The exact
Right,
match business names in the local pack are also insanely effective as well.
right,
Um, but they're very, very dangerous if you want performance in the AI search platforms. And the
right.
reason is because you have to really, like, for example, Nick, Nick Leroy, I'm assuming that's who you're talking
Yes,
about.
yes, McLaren. Yep,
So yeah, so for SEO jobs, he's got a lot of signals that confirm that that's an actual entity, not just
yep,
an actual brand entity, not just a generic entity, right?
right.
And so that's the danger of an exact match like mine, like St. Louis SEO consultant. Is that like a topic, a traditional generic topic, or is that an actual brand association? And the AI will have a really hard time with that unless there's a lot of signals that kind of train it to understand that that's an actual brand entity. So like even our brand Rankability, like when we first started, we were having a lot of problems because Rankability, like, not capitalized, is kind of a description of something. right? It's like, what's your rank, like, what's that keyword's rankability, right?
Right, right. Mm,
And so we've had to like basically beat the AI and algorithms over the head that rankability is an actual brand entity. And so we have to keep
mm,
reinforcing that over and over and over and over until the point it understands, like, okay, I understand rankability, along with, any other context you give it, will understand that that's a brand, not just a description, right? And so
right.
that's the danger of having the keyword rich type of business name, is like, yes, it's very effective on many fronts, but the AI, unless you have those confirming signals, is going to have some trouble trying to like, figure that out, because it's just using NLP,
Yeah.
right? It's using NLP to
Yep.
understand. And that could be that's one kind of issue that can happen. So yeah.
Right. So for brands like just you mentioned for rankability, now building that the entity authority. So for that, we'll need to still rely on the traditional backlink authority activities, right? To signal back that, hey, this is a brand. If that is the case now, how do brands balance this kind of content, let's say between the human readers versus the optimized for these kind of machines, basically interpreting it. Have you cracked anything from your experiments?
Yeah, well, I think let's run back on the topic of kind of trying to train these platforms that what your
Hmm.
brand entity actually is, right?
Right.
And you mentioned backlinks. That's a really good way to do it, right? It's a really really
Hmm.
good way. But the good news, this is something that's new. I want to say it hasn't been a big signal for traditional SEO, but it seems to be a bigger signal now for AI search. Is you want your brand to be associated with other known brand entities. So that's how
Okay.
it can start to decipher. So an example of this is like if you search, best SEO content optimization tools, right? You search that and you see there's like, SEMrush, their AI writer, and then you see Surfer and you see Phrase and you see ClearScope. Okay. They've been around for a long time. They've got a lot of brand recognition. The AI likely in its training, its static corpus knows that those are brands, right?
Right.
Now, to start to the next time that's training process goes through, you need to be on that list because if you're on that
Okay.
list, now you'll have the association. Okay, rankability is with Surfer, so there's a connection there, and there's also a connection with ClearScope, so therefore rankability is a brand, and now it can understand that, right? And then of course the context
Mm,
around it, that explaining what rankability is, and the AI will eat all that up, right? So, and you do that hundreds and hundreds of times over and over across many platforms. The training data will reflect that particular thing, and it's not easy, right? Like for example, rankability, we became incorporated, it was May 2024. So and the
mhm.
the cutoff date for GPT-5 was October 2024. So
Right.
like that's a very small window to try to train the AI on a brand, right? So like
Right.
in a year from now, 2 years from now, it's going to be abundantly clear that we're an actual brand. But you're trying to stuff as much stuff as you can to get into that training set for the next cycle. And if we think that GPT-5 just ended in October 2024, that means if we're running on 6-month cycles, they probably have already trained the next model, which is kind of
Yeah.
crazy to think about. So anyway, that's the key, is like, so you want to get as much brand association with other relevant brands for the product that you sell, obviously. But the good news is it does not have to be links. So you could, if you're on a list and it doesn't link out to your website, it doesn't matter, because if that list is ranking well and it's used for retrieval, the LLM will pull the entities out of there. So, and that's not how the training process goes, but just for the sake of generating
Sake of
response,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it can work. So the point is like just marketing is the key to making
Mhm.
this happen, right? Like you have
Right.
to market your brand, and this is no different than traditional SEO. Like the amount of
Right.
conversations and audits I've had over the years where someone comes to me and they're like, "We're doing all the SEO stuff right. Why are we not ranking? Why are we not getting results?" And then I go in, I just slap their website into Ahrefs and they have no backlinks. And I'm like, this is why. You
Yeah.
can't just, you don't live on a little island. Your brand can't live on this little island and think that, you're going to expand. you have to go and promote your brand across all the entities that are highly trusted. And if the trusted entities in your industry are not recommending you, that's a problem. So
Correct.
it's yeah. So anyway, yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely, Nathan. So, I mean, that's the way humans are structured. If we go to a new city, a brand new country, the first thing you may ask a local taxi or somebody for any recommendations. And it should be your name should be there in the top three or whatever that person is saying. So it's as simple as that. There is always references matters a lot. The word of
yep,
mouth reference in the traditional sense. And that's what is translating technically for the backlinks, but people abused it. But that's the way. And the good news, like you mentioned, it's no longer about the do follow link or no follow. I mean, it doesn't matter. I think what you're saying is just get featured. If there is a top
yep,
10 or a best company, just get featured there. I think that's where the hard work
exactly.
is going to go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and again, the craziest part too is even if it's a sponsored ad, like mention, the LLMs don't discriminate. They It
Right.
doesn't matter, right? Because
Mm.
they just see, okay, brand with other brands, and this is on a website that we trust. We can talk about what websites LLMs trust, but the idea is a whitelist. Okay, so you can find
Hmm.
these whitelists of websites that are considered the like most trusted websites on the internet. It's the top 1 million roughly. They're fully open source list that you can go and download, and this is literally what they use in the training process to kind of assign points to certain sources.
Right.
And so, yeah, and you can go and just find those. So ideally, you want, your brand to be, in that list if possible. But more importantly, you want other brands within that top 1 million websites to be referencing your brand. That's the key.
Cool.
So,
Got it.
and if you can find the brands that are obviously relevant to your industry in that top 1 million, and then do everything you can to try to get your brand there. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Now that we've covered a bit more, let's take a step back towards with a brand new, not a brand new, but a seasoned SEO team starting today for a client. Now, traditionally, it used to start with keyword research, the technical audit. There is a structure that we follow, but is
Yep.
that going to be the same for this AI visible, optimizations? What could be the first step for a 12-month journey?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, keyword research hasn't really changed. That's the one thing that, like,
Mhm.
of all things, it
Yeah.
still is pretty much the same for the most part, because at the end of the day, um, the way that people search has changed, obviously, right? Like, people search with a lot of commands. Give me 5 of the best plumbers. Like, they're very like demanding of these AIs. So it's just more command,
Right.
verb based, queries. The queries are also significantly longer. Just
Right.
anecdotally, like, I'll go on a walk and I'll do the voice on ChatGPT, and I'll just be like riffing on there, and it'll be a query that's like this long. It'll be huge.
Yes.
But the thing is, queries, the way that, these algorithms use queries is not the way that we think about them. They're just extracting entities out of it to understand it.
Yeah.
So, and so at the end of the day, as long as you're going after the topics that are most relevant to what you do, that's not really going to change. Like, you need to find the topics, and you need to create pages and content about those topics.
Right.
The process for me, the biggest piece of this is prioritization of these topics. And this is the biggest mistake. This is nothing new, by the way, but this is just a huge mistake that people did back then prior to AI, and they're still doing it now, which is putting too much emphasis on top of the funnel queries, too much emphasis on informational queries, when they should put all their emphasis on the bottom of the funnel and then work their way up.
Right.
And
Mhm.
that's the key. So for me, any SEO strategy that I build as far as like keyword targeting, it starts right at the end of the sales cycle. Like, I'll give you a very simple example. For rankability, every 24 hours, actually any campaign, but specifically rankability, every 24 hours, we go into Google Search Console and we look what queries are popping up. Every
Mm.
24 hours, I want to see what are the new queries that are popping up. Because if we have queries popping up and we're number 72 or 95, that's a problem, right? That means we don't, whatever page that is, showing up is not probably relevant enough. So usually it's a signal to me that, like, okay, we need to splinter off and build something more relevant. So what I do is first thing I'll do is I'll search our branded queries. So I'll just filter, I'll put rankability in there. And I had this query popping up that I was like, okay, but it was, who's the CEO of Rankability? That was a
Mhm.
query that was popping up. And I'm like,
Right.
okay. I mean, you could find out with some research pretty quickly, but like we didn't have like a
Mhm.
dedicated page that like really explained that. So I was like, all right, I'm going to spin up a page and attack that query. And of course, within a couple of days, it gets indexed, ranking number one. And then in ChatGPT, when you search that, now it references that blog post, right? So,
Right.
and now we've controlled our brand message a lot more clear. We are now controlling the truth about our brand instead of letting the AI just, try to hallucinate its way through it. Right. And so that's why starting with your branded queries is the best place to begin. You need to be your number one advocate, your number one person to go and make sure everything about your brand is consistent and accurate. Because if you're not doing that, you're just leaving it up to the AI to do it for you. And that's just not a good
Right.
thing. So start there. And then, obviously you work your way up towards, stuff that would be more commercial in nature. Right. And then slowly you go further up. So that is nothing new. That's still what you should continue to do. I'll say the biggest difference. Okay. There's one slight difference in Google Search Console specifically. We have to remember that these are obviously queries in Google. So these are not queries from chat. No one knows what queries are from ChatGPT. No one has
Yeah.
that data. Um, some tools claim they do, but they don't.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 No one has it.
Yeah.
But we do for Google. And we know that there is a certain pattern of queries that resemble AI chats. And so what you can do, you can just use ChatGPT for this if you want, but you can create regex formulas to identify
Mhm.
queries that are likely to be AI. And so I'm speaking specifically AI, Google's AI mode. And so
Mhm.
we have one that specifically looks for queries that are longer than 10 words. So you slap that
Right.
into the filter and you'll find these queries. You're like, whoa, these are crazy long. And you'll find these like really long tail queries. So the
Right.
only difference now is that what we do is we specifically in our keyword database, we flag what we believe to be queries that are likely to be AI queries, mainly just for the reason that we want to be tracking some of those prompts, just across the
Right.
other AI platforms. So it kind of gives us intel about what is likely to be used in other AI platforms. It's not necessarily true, but it's highly probable, right? So
Right.
so that's the only difference. It's like flagging those unique queries that obviously are AI centric, is what I would say. So but yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good one, Nathan, because this is where the visibility of be it on AI overviews, other things, is quite important. Because one of the challenges SEOs face now, especially in the last 6 months, is the declining traffic. They have to figure out various other metrics to ensure that the project continues with the client, or
Yep.
the client stays invested on SEO. In this aspect, this is one great way, like you mentioned. That is, this could be very useful for a lot of peeps out there. Look into the brand query. The first thing SEOs usually do is just filter out the brand, go for non-branded keywords. But how much
Right.
important it is for us to actually look into what people are attributing our brand to, whether it's correct or not, and then try to get into, like you mentioned, the CEO of Rankability. Maybe it's a potential investor who's looking into it. And in this aspect, Nathan, for you suggest for marketers to track visibility, what kind of metrics that you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, we all know there's tons of AI tracking tools popping up every day. So there's
Yeah.
there's plenty of them out there.
Yeah.
I'm actually building a training on this, which is um, AI search tracking and analytics certification. So I'm like really deep into this topic right now, and there's ways you can do this for $0, right? You don't have to buy a tool. So
Okay.
I'll kind of walk through some of the, let's do the low costs, anyone can do it type of thing. I'm not going to say
Hmm.
it's easy, but it can be done. Okay. So first one
Right.
is using Google Looker Studio. Okay. So this is probably the best one, I would say, if you're going like the free kind of manual route. And there's two things at a bare minimum you want to do. Number one, obviously, integrate Google Analytics 4. And then number two, integrate Google Search Console. So
Hmm.
and obviously way outside the scope of me explaining the technical details of this, but you can use ChatGPT to kind of walk yourself through it.
Hmm.
But Google Analytics is the first part. And within Google Analytics, you can actually group all of the AI platforms into one bucket. So with some filtering and various things, you can see how much traffic you're getting from ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, Grok, all of them,
Right.
right? And you can put
Right.
them all into a bucket. Then you put that into your dashboard and you can see specifically like the distribution of it. Now, I'll tell you, ChatGPT is probably going to be the biggest, just in general.
Yeah.
Okay, so ChatGPT is usually 60 to 70% of the total traffic from AI. Okay, and so that's the first thing is like measuring traffic, like actual referral traffic from these AI platforms. It's very small in comparison to traditional Google. Okay. Like it's tiny compared. However, that may
Yeah.
not be the case forever, right? That may change over time. But I think it right now
Absolutely.
the like start setting those benchmarks and seeing that. So the first thing is tracking traffic broadly and seeing kind of where that's distributed. And then within that as well, you also want to look at the pages that are getting traffic from the AI. Now you can break that down to the page level. So like in mine, I can see like how much traffic ChatGPT is sending to one landing page. And so if I see
Right.
like a particular landing page is doing well, then I can, double down on that, or I can expand on it. Like there's things I can do. Right. Or I
Right.
may see that one's doing very poorly. Like, why is this page, have really bad engagement or whatever it may be, and I can work with that. So that's the first thing is like on the referral traffic side, anyone can do that, right? Anyone can do that.
Right.
The next one is on the Google Search Console side. Okay,
Hmm.
this part's tricky because clicks are scarce for AI queries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so
True.
what we're focused on is what I've done is create a prompt bucket. Okay. So I mentioned
Okay.
earlier, like the length of the query, also identifying command based queries. So give me, things like that, kind of verb based
Right.
queries. Okay.
Suggest me, give me, like that. Yeah. Mm.
Exactly, exactly. So what
Hmm.
I do is then I put those into one bucket and then I can measure the impressions of that one bucket from Google Search Console. So I can see if that's
Right.
growing over time, then I know that
Mm.
we're doing the right stuff. We're getting the visibility. We're, attempting to influence the AI generated responses, right? And
Right.
so I want to see that those impressions are growing. So that's kind of the next one is looking at that. And then you can also look at specifically, even with Looker Studio, you can see the exact queries within that bucket that are showing up. So first I'm looking kind of the broad trend, and then I'm also looking at breaking it down to the query level. And then the other one is branded queries. Okay. Now this is
Right.
a weird one because it's really hard to isolate that branded queries increasing is directly associated with AI search because it could be many other things too, right? For example, I publish a lot of YouTube content. I get branded queries because of my YouTube content, not because of AI, right? So
Right.
you can't really filter it in that way. You can't really segment in that way, but it is kind of a proxy to see like, okay, you can see the chart of like your AI impressions going up. And then at the same time, if the branded queries are going up at that same kind of trajectory, you could argue that the AI platforms are driving branded searches for you, right? You could make
Correct.
that argument,
Hmm.
right?
Interesting.
So this goes back to like, how do we track this stuff? And once again, it's difficult, with the standard tools that we have available. Because the next level of this, which is what all these AI search tracking tools are doing, including ours, is tracking the brand mentions within the actual AI generated responses. I
Okay.
think you have to do that. You have to do it,
Mm.
because it is an actual. You can see that share of voice across all these commercial queries, and you can say, okay, of these 100 prompts that we ran, we only show up in 10% of them. That's a problem. We need to figure out why
Yeah.
our competitors are getting recommended and we are not, right? And so that's to me is like the biggest one. And you can do it manually. You certainly can. Maybe it'll be outside the scope of this conversation, but there's things you
Mhm.
can do to get that information. You can do it manually. You can use APIs, not as accurate as the real life stuff. There's obviously you can use proxies and you can use clickstream data. There's all kinds of stuff you can do.
Right.
You can also just invest in one of the tools and not do any of it. So that's the other option. Um,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of ways to do it. But I think in general, I would, even if like just starting today, like track, maybe a bucket of 5 to 10 prompts that are really important across the
Hmm.
major, AI chat platforms, and do it, every week. Just see kind of where's the brand popping up. Um,
Right.
and that's how I would start with that. And then,
No,
once you feel
that's
you can,
great.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's great. So basically, what I've understood is that first start with the, what all the branded queries, and then look at, I mean, even beyond branded queries, I mean, the starting point for building that is first look at the referral traffic from these LLMs,
yep,
right? ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever is the traffic. And then the second layer that you mentioned is bucketing the queries
yep,
based on the action oriented, like suggest me, recommend me, something like that,
correct.
with
Yep,
all the regex formulas. And then the third is deep dive into the brand also and try to get even more insights into what kind of brand queries that are searching. And within that, you may eventually see certain things which are very, very relevant for your business. Those things you double down, enable a tracking mechanism through these APIs or other things. I think that's the flow which
yep.
is being suggested.
Exactly. Yeah, and you need kind of all three, because the thing is, if you're just doing Google Analytics, you're looking at traffic, which isn't necessarily the only metric that matters in this scenario.
Yeah,
And because getting traffic from an AI chat is very hard. Because first of all,
yeah,
the citations are hidden unless you open them up, and humans they don't have
yeah,
time for that. So,
yeah.
so any traffic that you get, that comes is a byproduct of someone clicking on some sort of citation within one of these platforms, which is extremely rare. So
Yeah.
that's definitely not the best metric to focus on, but it's one that we do have available that we can, use to our advantage in that way. But I think, to me, the most important criteria is the share of voice, and that our brand is being mentioned in the AI generated responses. I've seen some people like really focused on like the citations themselves. And
Hmm.
to me, the citations are simply just a proxy for morphing the response in the AI. Right. So what I do is I
Right.
just look at the citations as my way to reverse engineer what's going on. I don't view them as a way
Hmm.
to drive traffic. Right.
Right.
So I say, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. Now I can go and play with these platforms, and
Right.
I know, because the LLM's giving me the evidence, that is
Correct.
where it's getting its intel, its meat. So, so I view it as, it's an action item. I don't view it as,
Hmm.
I need more citations because I'm going to get traffic. It's kind of a different thing like that. So if the traffic comes,
Right.
that's great. I'll take it, but
Hmm.
that's not what I'm trying to do. I want to play with the AI generated response. I want, if I'm selling, I'm Nike and I'm selling baseball cleats, I want to be number one every single time someone's searching best baseball cleats for pitchers. Like, I want Nike to be number one every single time. Right. And so
Right.
and along those lines, like, there's kind of two kind of core things you want to do with these AI generated responses. Number one is a simple yes or no. Did our brand appear? Yes or no. That's it. Simple as that. It's a very
Hmm.
simple metric.
Yeah.
The second one is, where did we appear? Right? Like, so where did we appear in this response? Were we number seven
Hmm.
or were we number one? We know there's a big difference in that. And especially, us with,
Correct.
with the SEO background, like number one versus number three, pretty big
We know the
difference in
CTR
CTR.
drops down heavily. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, yep.
Yeah, good one, Nathan. I mean, that was a fascinating conversation. In fact, I would now, be safely, we can say, whoever is believing that, hey, SEO didn't change much, if you have listened to the last 30, 40 minutes of our conversation, you would have already seen it's not the same thing that you used to see. Like creating content, refreshing the content, tracking it. I mean, that's like everybody knows, but now the game is getting different. So I think the semantics of doing it is getting different. It's not like, yes, traditionally it's the same. It's content, it's getting discoverability, showing up in more places so that you increase your brand. It's all the same. The structure is the same, but the mechanics of implementing it's changing. I think that is where sets us apart in terms of these kind of conversations. Because you can be still lazy, you can still say, yeah, I'm going to do that. Still, you may win in that. I think it's going to be a lot of hard work needed. So it's not going to be easy like how people are claiming. So Nathan, thank you so much for bringing such a clarity to such a complex topic. And, I hope to our audience, it was quite helpful.
Yeah, yeah, my pleasure. And I guess I'll just add one more thing to this, is like, I think the best thing to think about is SEO is not specific just for Google. You have to
Yeah.
think about doing SEO on every platform where people are looking for answers. And this is really, really important now because we've all seen it. You search something and you see LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube, and you're like, where are the websites? Where are those? Those don't really exist, right? In some cases.
Yeah.
And like I can
Yeah.
tell you, my YouTube channel, like I'm very grateful I started in 2017 because the amount of leverage that I have now is unbelievable. And I'm like, I see some people like, oh, you go and start a YouTube channel. I'm like, you should have
Yeah.
started many years ago. Like this thing is like, because it's so powerful.
Absolutely.
And so I would say like if you had a new business and you're like, okay, what's the first move we're going to make to drive, organic visibility? I would argue going to the places that already have authority is a better move in the beginning. Like
Correct.
instead of being like, all right, let's just focus on our website and we have like no website authority, that might not be a good move right away. If you want to get quicker traction, maybe just go right into YouTube, maybe go right into LinkedIn, knowing that they get indexed well, they rank well. You probably get results
Yeah.
faster doing SEO on those platforms. Just an idea. So
No, absolutely. I second you on that. I was just, I mean, in the previous conversation, like I was saying when I was discussing with Nick about it, I was telling him for our own new website, how I was using YouTube to zero in on Webflow or Framer. And then I went to LinkedIn to find a developer because I wanted the website to be developed soon. So I was already there on LinkedIn and I already spoke to him, chat with him on WhatsApp, finish it, and then on to Notion. We started the project. And then I realized we didn't use the website, we didn't use Google. It's like everything is done there itself, the whole
yeah,
conversation and the project is in. So probably this is what B2B and a lot of other things. I know we specifically in this conversation touched on B2C, the plumbers
right.
example and all, but I think a lot of these things are there. So gentlemen, ladies, thank you so much. Stay with us, for more sessions as we continue unpacking these future of marketing in the age of AI. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Nathan, for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.